Hey everyone, and welcome to this explainer. Listen, if you're building with AI right now, you already know the stakes are incredibly high. I mean, choosing the wrong model, that can literally mean slow response times, totally unusable outputs, or absolutely skyrocketing API costs that'll blow through your budget. So today, we're taking a focused, highly structured look at Anthropic's Claude family. By the end of our time together, you are going to have a crystal clear guide on exactly which model you should be using for your specific tasks, and honestly, more importantly, how to drastically optimize your costs. Let's get into it.
Okay, so let's quickly run through the agenda for today. First, we'll meet the Claude family. Second, we'll dive into their AI processing profiles. Third, we'll look at true cost and optimization. And finally, we'll wrap up with the ultimate decision tree.
All right, Section 1. Meet the Claude family. What's in a name?
You know, Anthropic did something pretty brilliant here. Instead of hitting us with a bunch of confusing alphanumeric acronyms, they named their models after poetic forms to give us a really simple mental shortcut. So think about a haiku. It's a minimalist 575-syllable Japanese poem, right? It represents speed, brevity, and ultimate clarity. Well, just like the poem, the haiku model is incredibly fast and brilliantly concise. It is completely purpose-built for those high-volume tasks where you just need immediate answers, zero fluff.
Next up, we step into the sonnet. Now, a sonnet is a classical 14-line poem, famously favored by Shakespeare. Writing one requires structure, power, and a lot of elegance, and the sonnet model mirrors this perfectly. It sits right smack in the middle of the family, serving as this beautifully balanced, highly elegant default that honestly handles the vast majority of production environments with total grace.
And finally, we have opus. Now, in Latin, opus just means work, but in the arts, it represents grand, incredibly complex musical compositions. Think of, Beethoven's Ninth Symphony. Opus represents the absolute highest level of complexity and depth, so when you have heavy-duty reasoning tasks that require massive intellectual lifting, opus is the one you bring in.
Moving right along to Section 2, AI processing profiles, the hard numbers.
Okay, so those are the fun, artistic metaphors, but we're actually building real applications here, so let's look at the hard technical realities of these models. What's really wild is the sheer scale of the context windows. Both Sonnet and Opus boast a massive 1 million token context window, while Haiku sits at a very efficient 200,000. Also, definitely take note of those updated knowledge cutoff dates. Opus 4.8 has the freshest data, reaching all the way to January 2026. And look at the speeds. Haiku is just ripping fast at around 52 tokens per second.
So let's look a little closer at Haiku 4.5. This is absolutely your high-volume, low-complexity workhorse. If you're building apps that are firing off tens of thousands of daily requests, we're talking real-time content moderation, quick text tagging, or fast customer support triage, Haiku is without a doubt the economical choice. But a quick word of caution here. You have to remember that 200K limit. It strictly restricts heavy, long document work, so you've got to keep the context tight. Scaling up, we have Sonnet 4.6. Anthropic actively recommends Sonnet as the production default, and honestly, when you look at the use cases, it's pretty obvious why. It just perfectly balances performance and cost. Whether you're generating comprehensive content, writing and reviewing complex code, or synthesizing really deep research, Sonnet hits that exact sweet spot. For most of your core production applications, this is going to be your daily driver.
And here's something that brilliantly illustrates what sets Sonnet apart. It's called extended thinking. This is a super unique feature that actually lets the model build a longer internal reasoning chain before it spits out an answer to a complex problem. And the coolest part? You can actually observe this process happening. It's kind of like watching a mathematician show all their work on a chalkboard before they finally circle the answer at the bottom.
But look, sometimes the math gets a little too complicated for a simple chalkboard, and that is exactly when you call in the heavyweight champion Opus 4.8. You deploy Opus for the truly massive, complex tasks. We're talking high-stakes security reviews, long-term agentic tasks, or analyzing gigantic sets of documents. Plus, Opus features adaptive thinking, which means it dynamically adjusts its own reasoning depth based on just how difficult it perceives your specific task to be. Pretty amazing.
Now, I know what some of you are thinking. If you evaluated Opus in the past and ran away screaming because of the price tag, you've got to see this dramatic optimization. Check this out. Opus 4.1 used to be $15 per million input tokens and $75 on the way out. Opus 4.8? It's now just $5 in and $25 out. That is a massive drop, making high-end, complex reasoning so much more accessible to developers than it was even just a few iterations ago. All right, moving to section 3, calculating true cost and avoiding mistakes.
So looking at a neat little pricing sheet is one thing, but calculating your actual real-world burn rate is a completely different story. So I want to ask you a very direct question. Is the cheapest model actually the most economical choice? Now, your immediate instinct is probably to say, well, yeah, Haiku is cheaper. But in the world of AI architecture, falling for that logic can literally bankrupt your project.
Here is the absolute crucial equation that you need to internalize. Total task cost equals the base token price plus your error correction cost plus your latency cost. Think about it. If you use Haiku for a highly complex coding task and it takes 4 separate prompts, 3 manual corrections, and a human stepping in to fix all the hallucinations, well, that just costs you significantly more than a single correct generation from Sonnet would have in the first place.
So to truly optimize, you have to use the tools that are available to you. Prompt caching is an absolute game changer. It significantly reduces the input token price if you're sending the exact same long system instructions over and over again. And hey, if your tasks don't require real-time answers, use the Batch API. It gives you a 50% discount right off the top. In fact, combining Haiku with the Batch API is what we call the absolute golden combo for high-volume data processing. Trust me, your startup's runway will thank you for that one.
Okay, let's look at the 2 biggest traps we see developers fall into out there. Mistake number 1 is treating Opus like a hammer and treating absolutely every task like a nail. Using Opus for everything just burns money, and honestly, it often results in overly complex, super wordy outputs for what should be simple questions. But on the flip side, mistake number 2 is using Haiku for everything. That's just going to degrade your output quality, drive your iteration costs through the roof, and really frustrate your end users.
And there are 2 more major traps to watch out for. First, failing to reevaluate your models every 6 months. Anthropic iterates incredibly fast. The model you perfectly optimized last year might be totally obsolete today. Second, ignoring token math. Listen, if you combine a massively lengthy system prompt with a huge reference document, you might just instantly hit your max output limits. You absolutely have to plan your context window math at the very beginning of the task design phase.
Finally, section 4, the ultimate decision tree, the cascade strategy.
We've covered a ton of ground today, right? From the hard specs to the actual economics. So now let's synthesize all of this data into a foolproof, actionable strategy that you can use right now. I call this the cascade decision strategy. Walk through this logically with me. Do you have a real-time need with extremely high volume and very simple tasks? Go with Haiku. Is it a production environment where quality truly matters but standard latency is totally fine? Choose Sonnet. Does the task involve massive context, highly complex reasoning, and mission-critical accuracy? Boom! That's when you deploy Opus.
So the crucial takeaway here is this. If you look at that cascade and you are still entirely unsure where your specific project lands, just start with Sonnet. Start with the perfectly balanced 14-line poem. Use it as your baseline. If the quality is absolutely perfect but you really want to save some money, test scaling down to Haiku. If it struggles with the logical reasoning, well, then you scale up to Opus. It's that simple.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final, slightly provocative thought to take back to your development team. As these AI models rapidly evolve, like Opus utilizing adaptive thinking to dynamically adjust its own reasoning depth on the fly, ask yourself, are you currently designing your applications for the model you have or the model you truly need? Thank you so much for joining me today. Go reevaluate your AI infrastructure, make those optimizations, and I'll see you next time.